and I'm really pleased to be joined in the studio by one of the biggest noises in the reform movement. He is the Deputy Leader, Richard Tice. Welcome, Richard.
Very good evening, Kevin, and thank you for that sort of resume. Yeah, it's been a very big day. It's been a remarkable few weeks. I mean, we've got just huge momentum. It's brilliant having Nick Candy, incredibly successful businessman, joining reform, making a real declaration of commitment with a very significant donation, and he's very well connected. And that's the exciting thing, is, you know, people like to back a winner. People like to back success. Success breeds success. And people can sense that something is really going on in politics across the spectrum. And, you know, I've got, from my old business connections, people I haven't heard of for 5, 10, 15 years, getting in touch saying, wow, you guys are really getting the momentum. Can we meet up? Can we chat? And in a sense, it's because people know that the two main parties have led the country into a terrible place.
Yes.
We are in a terrible, terrible place where people are getting poorer, the quality of life is getting worse, nothing works, and it's quite clear just after 5 months of Starmageddon that this lot are going to make us poorer still. And they've got no intention of reducing immigration. You talked about what did it for Tim Montgomery. But when Keir Starmer stood up and sort of tried to reset his agenda, I'm not sure whether it's missions, tasks, priorities, or milestones or millstones.
A lot of architectural language.
The point is, no one can remember any of it. The only thing we remember is that he didn't mention immigration, which is the #1 issue for tens of millions of people in this country who want it stopped and controlled. They want the boat stopped, and people want lawful immigration controlled to very, very modest numbers on a net basis. And people recognise we're the only party that does that. And people like Nick recognise we're the only party that's going to get this country growing again. Unless we grow again, Kevin, we are in deep, deep financial trouble, because we're writing more cheques than we're gathering in income. And if you keep doing that year after year after year, guess what? You go bust. It's as simple as that. And I'm telling folks, you know, if we carry on like this, with Rachel from accounts utterly clueless about how to, I call her budget the blunder budget. I mean, you know, they criticise Liz Truss for the mini budget. Forget that. This was the blunder budget of all blunders. And you've got people in the business community seeing turnover, confidence fall away, reducing jobs, reducing investment, and seeing energy bills go through the roof, absolutely in contrast to what the zealot Miliband has promised us. It's a very, very ugly picture economically.
I think, I don't want to get too diverted about Labour, but for them to stare us in the face, to gaslight us and say, this is a budget for growth. I mean, it's an extraordinary claim to say that £40 billion tax smash, you know, a hammer blow to the economy, to the people of this country, was and they portrayed it as a budget for growth.
But here's the extraordinary thing.
Are you kidding me?
But here's the extraordinary. Even before the budget, in the first 3 months of the Labour government, the very fear of what Rachel Reeves was going to do in the budget actually started to reduce confidence, and so growth basically stalled. And we'll see what the last 3 months of this year produce in January. But I tell you what, I am very anxious, very anxious indeed. And without growth, people feel poorer, particularly because if the economy is flat and you welcome 750,000 people net into your country every year, which is what the Tories did as an absolute minimum for year after year after year, and what I think Labour are going to do, then guess what? Per person, mathematically, we're all poorer. And don't be surprised that housing rents are going up. Don't be surprised you can't see a GP or get a hospital appointment, because the demand is, with a much bigger population, funny that, demand goes up.
Yeah, I was having lunch with a friend of mine who runs a small business in London. He's had to let 7 staff go because of this budget. So that is going to be a picture that you're going to see all over the country. Small and medium-sized businesses, you know, threatened with...
I'll give you an example, Kevin. Yeah. I was at, in my constituency of Boston and Skegness, I went to a GP's surgery where the impact of the increase in national insurance contributions means that this is a modest-sized business, a GP surgery, I think 7 GPs, 6 or 7 medical staff, and they were facing an increase in their bills by tens and tens and tens of thousands of pounds. So they're going to have to reduce the number of people in the practice, which means that their appointment capacity goes down. Exactly the opposite what the Health Secretary wants, to try and get the waiting list down. Utter lunacy.
Absolutely. That wasn't a budget for growth. It was a budget for, at best stagnation, but probably, or almost certainly, serious decline. We're in trouble, folks, with that budget and that Rachel from Accounts in charge of our economy. She's an economist, though. You know that, don't you?
I think the jury's out on that. But look, but actually, whatever your politics, look, having a new disruptor in British politics, which has gone badly wrong in recent years, is a very good thing, because competition is a good thing. It makes the others pull the fingers out, frankly, get their act together. Otherwise, we will win the next general election, and that's the ambition. Be under no illusion. We're heading towards the May elections. We're very excited about thousands of candidates, mayoral candidates like Dame Andrew Jenkins in Lincolnshire, and we're very excited about the potential in Wales. In 2026, we're making strides against all the odds. In Scotland, we could well be the kingmaker. Like we could sort of hold the balance of power in Scottish politics in 18 months' time. So this is happening, folks. And what I say to people, we've got 100,000 members. I'm joining. I'm saying, if you like the cut of our jib, get on the train, get on the bandwagon.
Well, more and more people are doing this, and this is one of the... I think there are many reasons which you've just been discussing, a lot of them economic, of course. But I think one of the central reasons that people are gravitating towards Reform UK, I think it's quite clear and obvious that everybody's extremely disaffected with this Labour government. I mean, what a disaster. So they're not really at the races in terms of popularity. So traditionally, people would have gone, right, I can't stand this Labour government, really sorry I voted for them, I made a mistake, I'm going back to the Tories. Then, 2 weeks ago, we learned that in 2 years, the Tories, almost secretly, had let into this country 1.75 million people, 908,000, I think, 2 years ago, and nearly three-quarters of a million.
That's net.
Yeah,
that's a net number in just 2 years alone. And they tried to present it as... initially they tried to present it as a fall in the numbers, but unbelievably, the Office for National Statistics, or I might call them the Office for Incompetent Statistics, they increased their number in 1 year by 230,000 people net. Who's been fired? Who's held accountable for these mistakes? Because if we'd known supposedly the real number a year ago, I think people might have felt very different as they headed towards that election.
Yeah, if you take these figures, it tends to work out like this. If 1 million people come in here legally, usually around about 400,000 of them will go back to wherever they came from, but 600 will remain. So the gross figure might be 1 million, the net figure will be 600,000.
But just to remind people, in the 1980s, that net figure, take away the gross and take away those leaving, was averaging between 20 and 50,000 year after year through the 1980s. And guess what? We had enough nurses and doctors because we trained our own people. And yes, we brought some in from overseas as well. And we could see a doctor. We didn't have huge hospital waiting lists. And housing rents were lower, housing prices were lower. Maybe actually growing your population by almost 10 million people in 15, 20 years wasn't such a smart thing to do, particularly if they are low-skilled, low-value people coming in. Then actually the OBR has now finally admitted the truth, which is that those people will always take more out from our economy than they put in. Totally contrary to the lies that we've been sold by the establishment for some 15 years or so.
Some of them still hang on to that. Rory Stewart tweeted last week, don't let anybody tell you that these migrants aren't good for our economy. Well, yeah, I'm going to tell you, Rory, they're not good for... They cost us money. They don't make us money. But let's talk about Tim Montgomery's eloquently put reason for leaving the Tories. The sheer magnitude of the number of people they've been allowing to come here legally, not to mention their inept failure to deal with the illegal migrant crisis. So people, there was the final straw. I think Kemi Badenoch has got a mountain to climb, to say the least.
Well, she has.
People feel completely betrayed by the Tories, and just let me, this is my point, that Labour, forget it, they're not at the races anymore. People, instead of going to the Tories, they go, well, hang on, what have they been doing? That's why they're coming to you. And one of the reasons they're coming to you is you're the only party. I'm not doing a party political broadcast here, folks. This is a fact. You're the only party with a cogent solution to the migrant crisis. The other two parties have got no solution whatsoever.
Well, the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, has surrounded herself by what I call slightly wishy-washy semi-Lib Dems in her shadow cabinet, who don't really believe in actually controlling the immigration numbers. There's question marks as to what Kemi herself believes in. And, this is absolutely fundamental, and they won't be forgiven, and they won't be trusted to say, yes, we want to bring the numbers down and we want Parliament to set the number. That's absolute waffle and garbage and gibberish. No one's going to trust that anymore. What they will trust is a clear, level-headed commitment that the only net zero we want in this country is net zero immigration. And that means that's what I call high-skilled, high-qualified people want to come in, who want to integrate, who want to work. That's pretty important. Who want to learn the language in numbers that can be absorbed in our communities and within the public services. That's what I call smart immigration. And that can be a very good thing. We can all agree on that. That can help the economy, help us grow. But mass, cheap, low-skilled immigration is an absolute catastrophe that's led to, guess what? We've got some 6 million people on out-of-work benefits. Yeah. And, it's completely unsustainable.
It certainly is. And why is it, do you think, Richard, that the main two parties... See, I don't want to sort of bestow upon you and Nigel a kind of genius, but what you do is you tell the public what you would do about the migrant crisis, whereas Labour and the Tories don't seem to be able to do this. And I think half the reason, I think in Labour's cases, they don't really want to solve the migrant crisis. They rather like all these people coming through our porous borders. And the Tories just don't have a clue. The Tories, I don't think, understand how important this is to people. That people of this country are crying out for a solution. Please tell us what you will do. I don't think the Tories understand how important...
It's worse than that, Kevin. First of all, they lied. They said they were going to bring the numbers down, and then they deliberately created policies post the pandemic to open the borders to mass immigration. And the likes of Priti Patel, very warm, friendly person, but she was supposed to be tough on immigration, and she was the person, when she was Home Secretary, who allowed these policies to go through. And we're paying the price now, literally paying the price. And it's been a catastrophe. And do you know who suffers the most? It's the elderly people and the youngest people. And, the young are looking around, impossible to get housing, student debt through the roof, and they're looking around and saying, well, what's in it for me? Why should I stay? I mean, and it was so unnecessary, because this stuff's not that difficult. We've done it before, and what we're saying is, look, we know what we're doing, we can do this. And if there are civil servants, bluntly, that don't agree with us, well, then we're going to politely suggest to them they go and get a job elsewhere, because we're going to bring in people who actually believe in delivering the agenda, the contract that we present to the people.
Last point, Richard. It's been good talking to you. I do think we're at some kind of linchpin in political history. I find the complacent devotion to the two-party system on the part of certain Tories to be quite extraordinary. Chris Philp was on Mike Graham's breakfast show this morning, sort of dismissing you. Oh, rubbish. It's only got 5 MPs. Oh, what about Nick Candy? He was in the Labour Party, then he went to the Tories. So no, I'd be really excited to see where he goes afterwards, as if they don't care. I mean, he is either pretending he doesn't care, because he damn well should do, or he's just stupid. Or they really ought to be worried about you. Last week, Nigel Farage, winning quite hilariously the Best Newcomer award at the Spectator Awards, addressed the establishment crowd and told them that he would win, or that you guys would win the next election. Now, I reckon if he'd have said that a year ago or 2 years ago, everyone would have laughed. And I gather his words fell on stony silence.
I was there, and it was absolutely hysterical because there were just a few of us reformers there who were roaring with laughter, and there was stunned silence from the Emily Maitlisses of this world and the Westminster Village, because there was a recognition. People know that something happened. And, you know, I think Nigel now is about 3 to 1 in the betting odds to be Prime Minister following the next election. And I just come back to the point, if you don't deliver, then someone's going to hoof you out. And what we're going to put to the British people is this is the way to save our country, get it back on track, and grow it again, make people better off. And that's how we make the country great again.
Let's not minimise the task ahead for you, Nigel, and Reform UK, but it's doable, isn't it? Do you genuinely believe that you've got a chance of winning the next election? I'm going to preempt you because I think you have.
Absolutely. And look, no one's saying it's easy. We're not in any way complacent. No, it's jolly hard work. And of course we'll make mistakes. We'll get things wrong and people will come down on us like a ton of bricks. But when we get things wrong, we'll admit it, we'll learn from it, and hopefully not make the same mistake again. That's how you be successful in any walk of life. And the same is true in politics. And it won't be for lack of trying, put it like that.
That's for damn sure. Richard Tice, how brilliant to talk to you. Congratulations on Reform UK's extraordinary story.